Let's continue in the tafsir of Al-Quran. And we are in the tafsir of Surat Al-Baqarah. Yani we're still there. But we are in the second juz'u by the help of Allah. And we're going to start tonight, inshaAllah, with ayah 178. And so the author says, starting with the word of God Almighty, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم القصاص في القتلى. O those who have believed, prescribed for you are the rules of retaliation. Yani obligatory on you to practice are the rules of retaliation for those who were murdered. الحر بالحر والعبد بالعبد والأنثى بالأنثى. The free for the free, the slave for the slave, and the female for the female. So, yani, the retaliation is for murdering someone of the same social status. So, the free person murdering a slave, he's not going to be executed here. And for example, the believer murdering the kafir, it's not going to be executed here. And other things. No, not rich and poor. Not rich and poor. Like free and slave, or believer and non-believer. فَمَنْ عُفِيَ لَهُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ شَيْءٍ. So whoever is pardoned, any amount of pardoning by his brother, his Muslim brother, min akhihi, from his brother means his Muslim brother. So what does that prove? That proves that the murderer is not a kafir. So then murder is not kufr. And therefore a major sin is not kufr. So that's evidence that's evidence for the creed of the Sunni Muslims, that a major sin does not take you out of Islam. So who's this pardoner? That's the slain's heir. فَاتِّبَاعٌ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Then the retaliation is dropped and pursuit of the blood money should be done with civility. وَأَدَاءٌ إِلَيْهِ بِإِحْسَانٍ. And payment to him should be made cordially, without procrastination or hostility. ذَلِكَ تَخْفِيفٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَرَحْمَةٌ. That option to drop the execution for blood money or for free is alleviation from your Lord and mercy. Yani, that's part of the ease of the laws revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The laws of Muhammad are the easiest laws. As for what Allah revealed in the Torah to Prophet Musa, it was that the murderer was to be executed, and that's it. There was no option for the heirs to pardon him. فَمَنْ اعْتَدَى بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ فَلَهُ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. So whoever transgressed and killed other than the killer, or he killed the killer himself after that pardoning, then he shall have a type of agonizing torture. Killed other than the killer, like there's a family feud, for example, so he killed someone other than the killer. And even if he killed the killer, but without being authorized to do so, or he killed the killer after he was pardoned, فَلَهُ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. Then he shall have a type of agonizing torture. Yani, a type of, according to Nasafi, that's what's taken from the indefiniteness, عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. A torture, a painful torture. So, according to Nasafi, means some type of painful torture. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاةٌ يَا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. And in the sanctioning of retaliation, yani of executing a murderer, you believers have the preservation of the life of who would have been killed, as well as who would have killed him, O those of intellect. Why? How? Because, yani, in the sanctioning of retaliation, in the fact that Allah made these rules, revealed these rules of retaliation, then it means the one who wanted to kill someone, the one who wanted, that believer who wanted to kill the other believer, then he'll think twice about it because he doesn't want to be executed himself. So then the one who would have been a victim is spared. And the one who would have victimized him, he's spared too, because now he would have been killed had he killed him. So, وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاةٌ. And in the sanctioning of retaliation, you believers have the preservation of life. Preservation of the life of who would have been killed, as well as the one who would have killed him. Ya ulil albab, oh, those of intellect, because our religion does not discredit the intellect. La'allakum tattaqun, so that you may beware of committing murder for fear of being executed. La'allakum tattaqun. So what would someone assume here? So that you fear God. So the taqwa, what's the taqwa? The verb itself, it means avoiding something or bewaring or being aware of something, being on alert from something. So it doesn't mean everywhere it falls that the tafsir of alladhina yattaqun or something like that, a similar wording, doesn't mean always that the tafsir of that is yattaqun Allah, they fear Allah. Like here, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may beware of committing murder for the fear of being executed. Subhanallah. That's something, maybe, yani, you don't know how that might cross someone's mind. Go kill somebody. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. May Allah protect us. كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت إن ترك خيرا الوصية للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف. Prescribed for you when death approaches one of you, if he leaves behind wealth, is making a will. الوصية للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف. So let one leave a will for the parents and the relatives with fairness, by not preferring the wealthy over the poor, nor by exceeding a third of one's assets. Yani, remember, al-wasiyah, the will, is a gift after death. The will is different from the inheritance. The irth, the inheritance. So the inheritance is shares that are already specified by the religions. Not our choice who's going to get half, who's going to get a quarter, who's going to get a third, who's going to get an eighth. It's not our choice. Allah Ta'ala took care of that for us because He knows better than we do about what's best for the slaves. In this case, why it's revealed in the Quran, who's getting what, which relatives inherit, which ones don't, and what percentages should they get. And there are rules in the religion. Who bumps out who? If this relative exists, if this relative is present, then this relative won't inherit, but had that relative not been present, then that other relative would inherit. Why the religion took care of all of that for us? Because we don't know what's better here. The humans don't know what's better here. So Allah Ta'ala, He revealed the rules for us. But He did give us an amount to choose, which is He allowed us to make a will that's different from the irth, different from the inheritance. The will is a gift after death. It can be as much as a third of your assets. 1/3 of 100% of your assets. That's the maximum. That's the maximum that doesn't require being approved by the heirs. And that's not sunnah. 1/3 is not sunnah. Because when the companion asked the Prophet ﷺ, Can I give away all of my money? He was dying, or he thought he was. He was so sick. So he said, can I give away all of my money? The Prophet ﷺ said, no. He said, half? The Prophet said, no. ﷺ. He said, a third? The Prophet ﷺ said, a third. And a third is a lot. So that means not sunnah. Better still, less than that. He said to him, it's better for you to leave your family solvent. Leave your money for your family so that they would be solvent. Better for you not to leave them to ask the people. حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُتَّقِينَ. As a responsibility upon those who fear Allah. فَمَنْ بَدَّلَهُ بَعْدَمَا سَمِعَهُ فَإِنَّمَا إِثْمُهُ عَلَى الَّذِينَ يُبَدِّلُونَهُ. Whoever then manipulates the will, whether witness or executor, after he has heard it, so it means the one who left the will has passed now, then the sin of it is only upon those who manipulate it, not the testator or the recipient, not the deceased Muslim who left the will, nor the recipient who's supposed to receive that gift. Inna Allah sami'un alim. Surely Allah is hearer of who makes the will and knower of who executes it. That's according to Jalalain. Or he is the one who knows who manipulates it. That's according to Nasafi. فَمَنْ خَافَ مِنْ مُوصٍ جَنَفًا أَوْ إِثْمًا فَأَصْلَحَ بَيْنَهُمْ. But whoever fears from a testator an inclination from the truth, someone who's making a will to be executed when he dies. Whoever fears from a testator an inclination from the truth or intentional sin, and then he rectified between the parties by making them comply with the religion, فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. Then there is no sin on him. إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Surely Allah is forgiving of the testator who was tempted, and merciful to the rectifier. This T here means Tabari. So, to remind you, most of our sources for the Tafsir here, it's translated Tafsir, is Nasafi, and that's mostly Nasafi, and then after that is Jalalain, and then after that is Tabari, and then after that there's some others like Qurtubi. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام. O those who have believed, prescribed for you is fasting Ramadan. كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Prescribed for you, meaning obligatory upon you, is fasting Ramadan. Just as fasting was prescribed for those nations before you, although they didn't have to fast Ramadan. They did have to fast, but Ramadan is reserved for the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, so that by fasting you may avoid disobedience, or so that by fasting you may be amongst the God-fearing, according to Nasafi. أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ, for a few counted days, meaning a little bit of days. That month, 30 days or 29 days. Or it means it's an obligation timed to a known number of days. But if it means it's just a few days, a little bit of days, if that's what it means, that's to encourage the believers. فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. But whoever among you were ill, sick, or on a journey, traveling, then he shall make up the missed number of days on other days. But who's that sick one that has to make up the missed number of days? That's the sick one who hopes for cure. He's not terminally ill and he doesn't expect to be cured. There's two types of sick people when it comes to fasting. The one who's terminally ill, that means he has no hope for cure. And then there's the one who's not as such, like he's sick now. Maybe he's sick for 2 days or 3 days or something like that. And he expects that, inshallah, he'll get better. But right now he can't fast. That's the one who has to make up the days that he missed. And who's like the sick person who doesn't expect to be cured? The senior, the old person. Meaning the old one who can't fast. And even when we say sick person, it means he can't fast. Doesn't mean he was diagnosed with something. The doctor diagnosed him with cancer or AIDS, or may Allah protect us from these types of things. Ameen. But he is actually strong and able to fast. We're not talking about that one. Someone who has a diagnosis. So then, the one who's sick and he expects to be cured, he's going to have to make it up when he gets cured. The one who's sick and he doesn't expect to be cured, then he's not going to have to make any fasting up. And likewise, the old person, he doesn't expect to make any fasting up because he doesn't expect that he's going to get young again. وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. And on those who are able to do it is a redemption, feeding a poor person. The judgment in the first days of the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the choice between fasting and feeding the poor. Then this rule was abrogated. So that's why it's saying, وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ. For those who are able to fast, there's a fidya, a redemption payment. The implication being they're able to fast and they don't. Then their option is to pay a fidya instead of fasting. But that was abrogated. And now whoever is able to fast has no other choice if he does not have an excuse. Like, he's not a traveler, for example. He doesn't have an excuse. So then he has to fast. There's no option. فَمَن تَطَوَّعَ خَيْرًا فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ. So whoever volunteers doing something good by adding to the redemption more than what is obligatory, then that is better for him. So whoever volunteers doing something good by adding to the redemption more than what is obligatory, then that is better for him. وَأَن تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. And for you to fast is better for you than feeding the poor. إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. If you only knew. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. The month of Ramadan is that in which was revealed the Quran. So then we knew that when Allah said, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ. In Surah Al-Qadr, that ayah means, indeed, we have revealed the Quran on Laylatul Qadr. Then we knew that Laylatul Qadr is in Ramadan by putting these two ayahs together. And saying that Laylatul Qadr is in Sha'ban is a mistake. هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ. Revealed as guidance for the people and as clear verses of guidance and the Furqan. The Furqan is the Quran itself. It was in وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ. And as guidance for the people and clear verses of guidance and as the Furqan. Yani, It was revealed وَبَيِّنَاتٍ as clear verses. Clear verses, min al-huda wal-furqan, clear verses of guidance and the Furqan. The Furqan is the Quran itself, the Quran that distinguishes truth from falsehood. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. So whoever of you witnessed the new moon for the month, then let him fast the span of the month. Or whoever was residing and not traveling during the month, then let him fast its duration. This part of the ayah here, it has in it a style in Arabic called istikhdam. Istikhdam. I'm not sure how to translate that. Yani, istikhdam means to mention a word with a meaning. Yani, to mention a word with one meaning, and then to come upon a pronoun that goes back to this word, but when it goes back to that word, it has a new meaning. So the pronoun goes back to the word that we already passed, but giving that word now a new meaning, not the one that it meant when we passed it first. So that's here. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. So any of you who witnessed the month. So the month here, ash-shahr, what does that mean? What that means here is the crescent. So when we first pass the word, it has a meaning. It has a designated meaning, which is the crescent. Because what is it that you witness? It's the crescent. So any of you who witnessed the month, meaning who witnessed the crescent, the new moon for the month, فَلْيَصُمْ, then let him fast it. What's it? The month. So does that mean then let him fast the crescent? No. It means let him fast the days of the month. So the pronoun that we translated as it goes back to shahr, month, but giving it a new meaning other than the meaning it had when we passed it the first time. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. So whoever of you witnessed the new moon for the month, then let him fast the span of the month. Yani, let him fast the days. Whoever of you witnessed the moon, then let him fast the days. Who witnessed the moon for the month, let him fast the days of the month. وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. And whoever among you were sick or on a journey, then he shall make up the missed number of days on other days. Yes. So we just explained what the sickness means. And as for the journey, it has to be what's called a long journey. Safarun tawil, a long journey. And a long journey is masafatu qasr, a shortening distance. A distance that enables shortening the fourfold prayers to 2 rak'ats. So if one travels that far, and according to Ash-Shafi'i, he has to have left before Fajr came in. He has to be a traveler when Fajr is in order to not fast that day. If he started fasting already because Fajr came in while he was residing, and then he embarked on a travel after that, according to Ash-Shafi'i, he has to complete that day, and then he won't be able to break his fast until the next day if he's still a traveler. Then one can break his fast and make it up later. And the difficulty of the journey is not a condition. It's not the difficulty that makes breaking the fast permissible. It's the distance only, just the distance. It's not the time it takes to cover the distance either. It's just the distance itself. يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Allah accepts convenience for you, and therefore grants facility to the sick and the traveler, and he does not accept for you the difficulty. وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةِ, and he accepts that you should complete the number of missed days. وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ, and that you exalt the greatness of Allah upon completing the fast, for his guiding you to the rites of his religion. So what's that? That's making the takbirs of Eid. Complete the fast, and then on the Eid do the takbirs. وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, and so that you may appreciate what has been sanctioned. That's according to An-Nasafi. Or so that you appreciate what Allah has done for you. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, and when my slaves ask you about me, O Muhammad, then surely I am qareeb. So we didn't just translate it and say, I am close. Because we are people who avoid throwing the people into confusion about some mutashabih verses of the Quran and mutashabih hadiths of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What does qareeb mean here? Qareeb means knowing everything and answering the supplications. This is the meaning because Allah has exalted from closeness by place. It is the figurative closeness. That's according to Imam An-Nasafi. So God's closeness to his slaves is his knowledge about them, not a place, not a distance. And the slave's closeness to God is his obedience to him, not a place or a distance. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ, I answer the call of the supplicant when he calls me. And in that is evidence that Allah has an attribute called speech. Didn't we learn that Allah Ta'ala has 13 attributes that are obligatory on every accountable person to know? They are obligatory according to the scholars because they were mentioned in the Quran repeatedly, explicitly, and implicitly, as well as in the Sunnah. Yes, we did learn that. So here's an example of an ayah that indicates one of those 13 attributes that are repeated over and over again. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ, I answer the call of the supplicant. That means he has speech. It's an uncreated speech, though. It's not a speech like our speech that starts and stops and is made of letters and sounds and languages. It has pieces and parts and changes. His speech is an uncreated speech that's not any language. It's not Arabic. It's not Hebrew. It's not Syriac. It's not Assyrian. And it's not any other language. He revealed revelations in created language to his prophets, to some of them, that is. Some of the prophets received books. These books are revealed in created languages. And those books that have created languages in them, their contents are created languages. They tell us what God says with his uncreated speech. Because when you say so-and-so said, that doesn't mean that he said it the way you're saying it. To say he said such and such doesn't mean that he said what you're saying the way you said it. It means this is the meaning of what he said. Don't you see that most of the prophets were not Arabs? But Allah tells us in the Quran that this prophet said this and that prophet said that. Those prophets weren't speaking in Arabic. It doesn't say in the ayah, they said what means, that part, what means. You don't have to be stuck there. So many people are. They won't say, He said, and then just keep going without saying, what means that's not necessary. Well, you can if you want to, but it's not necessary. أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعان. I answer the call of the supplicant when he calls me. فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون. So let them respond to me by obedience and constantly believe in me so that they may be guided. It was revealed as an abrogation of the unlawfulness of sexual intercourse and of eating and drinking after the night prayer that was during the earliest phase of Islam, what we're about to read now. Meaning, it used to be that it was haram for them after Isha to be intimate with their spouses and to eat and drink. And then that was abrogated. Here's the abrogation of that. أحل لكم ليلة الصيام الرفث إلى نسائكم. Legalized for you on the night of the fast is copulating with your women. هن لباس لكم وأنتم لباس لهن. They are a garment for you from what is forbidden, and you are a garment for them. علم الله أنكم كنتم تختانون أنفسكم. Allah knew that you were betraying yourselves when it was obligatory to refrain after Isha prayer because they were still being intimate with their spouses, although it was haram. فَتَابَ عَلَيْكُمْ وَعَفَى عَنْكُمْ. So he forgave you and pardoned you. فَالْآنَ بَاشِرُوهُنْ. Now that it is permitted, engage them by sexual intercourse. وَابْتَغُوا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. And seek what Allah has ordained for you of children. وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ حتى يتبين لكم الخيط الأبيض من الخيط الأسود من الفجر. And eat and drink until the white thread of the day becomes distinct from the black thread of the night at dawn. Yani, when the dawn comes in. Eat and drink until the dawn comes in. ثُمَّ أَتِمُّوا الصِّيَامَ إِلَى اللَّيْلِ. Then complete the fast till the night. So that proves that the time of fasting is daytime, not nighttime. وَلَا تُبَاشِرُوهُنَّ وَأَنْتُمْ عَاكِفُونَ فِي الْمَسَاجِدِ. And do not engage them while you observe i'tikaf in the masjids. I'tikaf is not special to Ramadan, but that increases during Ramadan. Muslims would do i'tikaf more, seeking Laylatul Qadr. And i'tikaf is an easy worship. It is the worship of being in the masjid with an intention. That's it. The minimum of i'tikaf is to be in the masjid longer than the time of tuma'nina in a move of prayer. You know the tuma'nina in prayer? Like when you bend over for a ruku' and you pause a moment and then you stand up and you pause a moment, talking about the minimum. Not bend over and then say subhanallah 3 times. The minimum would be you bend over and you pause for a moment and then you stand up and you pause for a moment and then you prostrate and you pause for a moment and then you sit up and you pause for a moment and then you prostrate and you pause for a moment. So that pause there in between each move, that's called tuma'nina. Serenity or tranquility. The minimum of i'tikaf is more than that. So if you just step into a masjid, not a musalla, step into a masjid with an intention of i'tikaf, dwell there for more than the time of serenity in a prayer move. And then if you want, you can leave. And then you got the reward of i'tikaf. When I was studying overseas, we used to do that. We'd be walking down the street. And then if we passed by a masjid, because the Muslim country has so many masjids, so we would pass by a masjid, we'll just step right inside the door make an intention of i'tikaf, stand there for a moment, and then walk back out and keep going. تِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ فَلَا تَقْرَبُوهَا. Those are the limits set by Allah, so do not approach them. كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ آيَاتِهِ لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. Like He clarified what was mentioned for you, thus does Allah clarify His laws for the people, so that they may beware of the sins. وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ. And do not consume each other's properties among yourselves fraudulently. Don't do invalid deals. And don't cheat each other. Don't scam each other. وَتُدْلُوا بِهَا إِلَى الْحُكَّامِ. Nor present the case to the judges. Yani, do not offer bribes to the judges. That's an alternative meaning. وَتُدْلُوا بِهَا إِلَى الْحُكَّامِ لِتَأْكُلُوا فَرِيقًا مِّنْ أَمْوَالِ النَّاسِ بِالْإِثْمِ. Nor present the case to the judges so that you may consume part of the people's properties sinfully. وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. While you know your fraudulence. And who falls into this, by the way, a lot of times is the women who take the fathers of their children to court for child support. How's that? Well, remember the rules. First of all, before you take them to the court for child support, remember what's even their obligation. What's the obligation of the father? He has to support his prepubescent child. If that child doesn't have his own money, first of all. If the child doesn't have his own money, then the father has to support the child. That's, by the way, when the child is born in wedlock. So it's even worse when the child's born out of wedlock, because now his bastard child is not attributed to the man. He's not obligated to pay for this child. So you can't take him to court to force him to pay. It's going to be unjust because he's not obligated to pay. So you'd be taking that money invalidly, fraudulently. Now, what if he is obligated to pay for that child? Okay, so what do you have to pay for? He has to pay for the child's food, clothing, medicine, and the like. So does that depend on how much money he makes? Does that have to be a percentage of his earnings? No. Does that mean he has to even give the money, give the mother? Does that mean he has to give the mother the cash to take care of that? No. If he bought the clothing and bought the food and bought the medicine or whatever and gave it for the child, gave it to the mother for the child, then he fulfilled his obligation. You can't take him to court to force him to pay cash money based on the percentage of his earnings, which is what they're going to do, those kuffar. That's unjust. So that if he's, for example, a millionaire, they're going to make him pay like so many hundreds or thousands of dollars per month because of how much money he makes. That's unjust. So what if that were your case? What you're supposed to do then, what you need to do, give that money back. Give the money back to him. Yani, cancel that child support and give the money back to him and let him pay it. Now, if he doesn't pay, and that's the only way you can get him to pay, then you're only allowed to take what he's obligated to pay. So what you're going to do, take what you need and give the rest back. Don't hold it. It's not yours. So there's very thin ice here. That some people, when they live in some, especially non-Muslim countries, there's some unjust laws that they can take to their advantage. And so they do so. Let's stop here. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Do you have any question I can answer for you? I think the Super Bowl took away half of our audience today. Subhanallah. Yeah, Super Bowl is strong. Subhanallah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Okay, so is there a particular amount that the father has to pay out of his earnings for child support,
No.
or does it matter like the area that the child lives in?
No. The
No.
only dependent of a man who gets a very specified amount is the wife. The wife
That's
is
why I was asking that about the child.
Yes. The wife is the one that he has to observe how much food he gives her every day, how much clothing he gives her every year. But anyone else other than the wife that a man is obligated to support, his obligation is to fulfill their needs. And that doesn't have a particular limit. Yani, I just want to be more clear for you too. When I say any person that a man is obligated to support, so who else he might be obligated to support? He might be obligated to support his parents. So how much food he has to give them, there's no particular amount. How much clothing he has to give them, there's no particular amount. Maybe he even has slaves. How much food he has to give them, no particular amount. Only the wife is the one who has very specified, determined amounts that he's obligated to provide for her.
Okay.
So it means that, for example, when he's taking care of his children, what's he obligated to do? Like, just get them full. He feeds them until they are full. That's his obligation. It's not a particular amount of money or amount of food. And how much clothes you have to give them, the clothing that they need. If it gets worn out, he gets them some more. It's not a particular amount he has to get them. And like that.
Okay, I think it's more clear.
I'm just thinking about how does a man do, for example, he has kids, let's say, Yani. He has his kids for the weekend. He's going to like get the food, put it there, get a lot of food and get it there and tell them eat. To fulfill his obligation. So they just eat until they get full. So then he's happy. MashaAllah. طيب. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.